Hi everyone, I'm just doing a quick video on question 2 and question 4 of the paper 2 reading paper. This is non-fiction and this exam is looking at prisons. Question 2 and question 4, I'm doing them together because basically the same question, they're asking you for the same things as a student. So the exam will last 2 hours. Remember, it's an hour for the reading, so we're concentrating on the reading exam. You get an hour for this. If you get extra time, you get an extra 15 minutes for the reading exam. So like I say, we're looking at the reading exam. You'll get 2 extracts. We're focusing on this one. Question 2 and question 4 look at 1 extract. This is about a really tough prison. The title is Inside America's Toughest Prison. And this is the 21st century text. And there's another one on the 19th. Remember, you've got to time manage. 3 or 4 marks, 3 to 5 minutes. This is a 10-mark question, so we're looking at 13 to 15. But remember, you use up the time, you do as many quotes as you do in the time, and then you move on to the next question. So we're looking at question 2 in this exam. The question is, how does Mark Benelli, who's the writer of the article, how does the writer show that the prisoners in Florence live in extremely harsh conditions? Okay, so you're looking at a really tough prison and you're trying to pick out 6 to 10 quotes that show that this prison is really tough, really hard to live in. So it's exactly the same as the paper 1 how questions. Explain why you picked the quote and what the words mean for the reader. So in other words, why the writers intentionally use words and what they mean. Use as many examples as you can in the 30 minutes. And the reason we want a lot of quotes is these people were both as good as each other at English. However, the one on the right was much better at exam technique. The person on the left didn't know to use lots of quotes, and because of that, they only got a couple of marks out of 10. While the person on the right knew to use 8 quotes, as many quotes as they can, they get a higher mark. Remember, it's almost a quote a mark a quote if you explain it in the correct way. It's much better to have a little bit of explanation about a lot of quotes as opposed to a lot of explanation about a small number of quotes. So, like I said, you need to use a range of quotes from the beginning, middle and end of the extract. So you'll get marked down if you look at this example where this person has just used quotes from the start. You need to make sure that you take quotes from all over the extract, okay? You need to show the examiner you've read the whole thing. So this question's all about where a writer deliberately uses words, and you're going to zoom in on keywords and say why has the writer used them. So for example, the writer could have put, he awoke to a storm. The writer's chosen to put in raging, howling for a reason. So what are the connotations of raging and howling? Well, angry, loud, violent, yeah? So the use of the words raging and howling make the storm seem angry, alive and punishing. If it had just said the storm, that doesn't tell the reader it means angry, alive and punishing. But those words, raging, if you're raging someone, you're angry, aren't you? So it's all about where writers use words on purpose. Again, here's our extract. So if you're in the exam, you zoom in on 5 to 10 quotes, but basically do as many as you can on 13 and 15 minutes. Pick up the quotes that make the prison seem tough, hard or difficult. Remember, if the quote is obvious, you don't always need to explain it. So for example, the question is, how does the writer make it seem tough or harsh? And literally the quote is, it is known for its harsh conditions. So I've put, the writer makes it seem harsh when he says it is known for its harsh conditions. I don't need to explain that, it's obvious, okay? Obviously you're going to probably have to explain most of your quotes, but if it's a really obvious one, just take the mark and run. So yeah, zooming on 7 to 10 quotes. I'll do it for you. I'll pick up the quotes that you're going to use. It's known for its harsh conditions, which I've just talked about. Incredibly small 12 by 7 foot cells. They sleep on concrete slabs topped with thin mattresses. Prisoners are never allowed to come into contact with other prisoners. Prisoners can get hallucinations and memory loss, and it's called a clean version of hell. So stop the video and see if you can do a few little 6 PEs, 1 each for this quote, and well, 5 actually, because we've done number 1. So 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. See if you can do a couple of sentences on each one saying why that sounds really harsh for the prisoners. Okay, always zoom in on 1 or 2 words in the quote. Don't always copy out like the massive quote. So these are the words that I would zoom in to in your answer. So I'm just going to go through a couple. Like I say, pause the video if you want to go on your own. So my quote is incredibly small 12 foot by cells. So first of all, you could just say this is harsh because they're obviously living in very cramped conditions. That would get you a mark, but I zoomed into the word incredibly, and I put the word incredibly shows that Mark is amazed by how small the rooms are. So this guy's gone to the prisons and he says it's incredible how small they are. So there you go. So there's my quote, incredibly, and then there's my explanation to say why it makes the prison seem harsh. Another quote: they sleep on concrete slabs topped with thin mattresses. So if it's a concrete, if the bed is concrete, obviously it's going to be uncomfortable. If it's thin mattresses, that also means that it's not like they have a cushy thing. It means they can feel how hard it is. So I put they're sleeping on concrete beds with thin mattresses, which must be very uncomfortable. So not a genius point, but it's just a simple point. I picked out a quote and explained it. Remember, if I can get 2 quotes in 1 sentence, that'd be absolutely brilliant. Tiny single window, only 4 inches wide, just offer a glimpse of sky and nothing else. So I've put, first of all, I zoomed into tiny, and I said the word tiny emphasizes how small the window is. And then I'm going to zoom into glimpse and say, well, glimpse shows the prisoners see hardly any of the outside world. So even their window doesn't even show them the world, really. They just get a tiny peek at it, which actually could be more frustrating, couldn't it, if you were a prisoner? The prison is known for having America's most violent and evil criminals. This is probably one you don't need to explain too much either, but I have said most, as in the most violent criminals, means the prisoners in Florence are worse than any other prison in the USA. Yeah, because if it's the most, it means it's the most of something. Prisoners are never allowed to come into contact with other prisoners. So the prisoners never have the freedom to speak to other people. There are no exceptions. The prisoners get hallucinations and memory loss, so this means that the conditions are so harsh they get mental problems. Okay, and then here they all are in one if you want to pause the video. I've talked about most of them. But yeah, so like I say, it's a 10-mark question. Do as many quotes as you can in 13 to 15 minutes. It would be great if you get to 5. Anything over 5, you'd be doing really well. But remember, once your time is up on the question, you move on. But again, if it's a simple quote, don't explain it. If you need to explain it, then no more than 1 or 2 sentences. Okay, I've just shown you again that these are real student answers. This person did 5 quotes, they got 5 out of 10. This person did 8 quotes. It might look like they've done loads more, but they're basically what I've done, but they just put it in one big chunk. So I would advise you between each quote to do drop a line. But remember, all these people are doing is saying why the prison seems harsh. Okay. And then, as a reminder then, time manage, do PEs on question 2 and question 4 of the exam. Do lots of quotes, or as many quotes as you can do basically in your time. But when your time is up on the question, either 4 or 5 minutes for a low mark question or 13 to 15 minutes for a high mark question, you move on to the next question, you make sure you finish the exam. So for example, if it's a 5 minutes for a low mark question, 13 to 50 minutes for a 10 mark question, you've got to get to the end of the exam. Remember, if you miss out any 10 mark questions, you're really going to struggle. Question 6, which is the last question in the exam, is a 10 mark question. You've got to make sure you give yourself enough time for that. Any questions, drop me a message on Teams, and I hope this has been helpful to you.